I talk a lot about the importance of genes in everything from child behavior to addiction to mental health, mostly because that's the piece that people aren't talking about, that's so often overlooked. But that doesn't mean that the environment doesn't play a critical role. It absolutely does. About half of the differences between people, whether we're talking about risk taking or impulsivity or conscientiousness or anxiety, about half of the differences that exist between us are due to differences in our DNA, in the sequences that we were born with. And about half is due to differences in our environments. But here's the piece that's really interesting. You can't actually understand the way that your environment is impacting you without taking into account your own unique genetic makeup. In other words, our genes and our environments are not separate things. They don't exist on their own. DNA in a petri dish does not spontaneously generate a human being. It has to develop within an environment, a mother's womb. Conversely, the environment is different for each of us depending on our DNA. That's why my husband and I can walk outside, same time, same day. I think it's freezing. He thinks it feels great. Same environment, but we're different people. And so we have different wiring and we literally experience it differently. That means it doesn't make sense to think about our genes and our environment as separate things that impact us. They are intertwined and inseparable. Nature versus nurture was a silly debate. You cannot understand one without the other, which is why when we talk about wanting to make a change in our lives, it's unfortunate that we usually only focus on the environment because that's only half of the puzzle. So with that in mind, let's unpack the environment a little bit more. Some environments are in fact random. For example, whether we experience a natural disaster like a hurricane or tornado, or maybe whether we're hit by a car. But most environments don't just happen to us. You don't just wake up and find that you're in a library or a bar. We play a role in actively seeking out and choosing our environments, and our genes are involved in those choices. So, people who have a love of reading or like quiet spaces are more likely to seek out and spend time at the library. People who are more extroverted and more spontaneous and risk taking are more likely to enjoy being at parties and at bars. Maybe that car accident didn't just happen to you. Maybe you were speeding, so you played a role in it. Our genetic predispositions influence the environments that we find ourselves in. And then those environments further shape us. So it creates a feedback loop between our genes and our environments. Not only that, but the way that we respond to environments, including other people in our lives, is also influenced by our genes. That's why something that your child does that drives you crazy may not bother your partner. Or why you might have a coworker that you can't stand, but your friend thinks they're great. Same person, different experiences due to our own unique wiring and how our wiring interacts with that person's wiring. And on an even larger scale, these differences influence why some people can bounce back from adversity and other people fall into depression, or why some of us can drink socially and other people experience addiction. So our genes influence the environments we seek out and the way we respond to those environments. So yes, the environment is an absolutely critical part of our lives, but you can't actually understand or disentangle the environment from your own genetic wiring. And that's why it's so important to understand our dispositions, because by understanding our dispositions, we can start to break those cycles and patterns that aren't working for us. I have spent more than 20 years studying all the ways that our genes come together with our environments to influence our lives. I've written hundreds of scientific papers, and I've led dozens of grants from the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and other private foundations. And now I want to help you harness the power of genes, your genes, to live your best life. You can find free resources and learn more at my website, danielledick.com, or follow me on social media at Dr. Danielle Dick, where you can learn more about how understanding your natural tendencies can help you in your day-to-day life.